Welcome back to the 9 News Business Buzz, where we take up what's happening in business, why it's important to you and our economy. I'm Ryan Frazier, 9 News business expert and CEO of Frazier Global. I'm joined by Ed Seelover of the Colorado Chamber of Commerce and the editor of the Sum and Substance. Ed, so much going on in the business world today. What's on your mind?
Well, actually, Ryan, just on Friday, I wrote a story on Sum and Substance, tsscolorado.com, that explains all about a new road funding initiative that may be coming up in 2026.
Ed, it's funny. I thought you might just say that. Now, let's get into this. It's a new ballot initiative is advancing that would amend the state constitution to require that the state revenue collected from road transportation be spent only on roads. Now, supporters say this is a common sense fix for our gridlock, but opponents warn the fine print could mislead voters and defund other critical programs. Ed, the text of this measure seems simple enough. It requires money collected for roads to be spent on roads, specifically motor vehicles on streets, highways, and bridges. Let's talk about the pros and cons again. Now, supporters like Colorado's Contractor Association say this is a top priority to fix a problem that gets worse every year in terms of lack of road funding. Opponents say it defunds other programs and it's misleading. Give us the rules of the road here.
Well, where this really goes back to is a 2021 law that put $5.3 billion toward road funding, or toward transportation funding, I should say. And it created new fees that everyone's paying, fees on Uber and Lyft rides, or on Amazon deliveries, or on gas sales. Those things were supposed to really pep up Colorado's transportation infrastructure. However, 5 years later, a lot of road funding advocates say it hasn't done that. They point to a Reason Foundation study that comes out every year that recently dropped Colorado to 43rd in terms of road condition and funding. And they say too much of this money has not gone toward roads, but has gone to things like electric vehicle charging stations, toward bike lanes, toward transit, and people just aren't able to get around in increasingly congested roads. After all that, they said, we're tired of waiting for the legislature to do something. We're taking this into our own hands and putting this ballot initiative forward.
Yeah, it seems simple, to at least on the surface to understand, right? Who would, if you will, ostensibly disagree with this idea of money for roads going towards roads? But I know it's a little bit more complex than that, and I'm going to give you an opportunity to break it down further. But let's talk about the revenue side of this. What revenue exactly is this proposal trying to lock down, and why do supporters feel that they need to have an amendment to do this?
Well, there are two pools of revenue that they want to take here. The biggest part is they want to take 2/3 of all the state sales tax revenues that are raised from auto-related sales. These are car sales, these are auto parts, these are tire sales, and they want to put that money toward road maintenance and construction. The other part is they want to take these fees that I just talked about, these Uber and Lyft or Amazon delivery fees, and they want to make sure that money is not going to EV infrastructure or fleet electrification. There's 4 enterprises that now get that money, and instead they want to put it toward road construction and maintenance. This would raise about $700 to $800 million a year annually without raising taxes for roads. That would about double the maintenance and construction budget that CDOT has every year now.
Now, and you touched on this, but the controversy seems to always be in the details. The measure's definition of revenue includes some revenue currently allocated for other transit-related purposes. Now, an attorney that represents the opposition side is objecting to this measure. They called it a classic rolled up in the folds policy that would mislead voters. What other programs are at risk of being defunded if this measure passes as written?
Well, first of all, if you're taking those 4 enterprises, those are enterprises that get money toward electric vehicle charging stations, toward fleet electrification, toward transit. That money would go from there to road maintenance. That's an obvious one. The bigger issue, though, is still that money where you would take 2/3 of the state sales tax revenues from auto parts, auto sales, etc. That goes into the general fund right now. So moving that money means that anybody who's getting money from the general fund could see their funding at issue. Those could be healthcare organizations, that could be education, anything that's in there, and that $700 million, that's a lot of money, could be at issue going to roads.
Yeah, of course, right? I mean, you talk about the healthcare, as we've covered on the Business Buzz a time or two already, there's increasing concern on the impact on programs like Medicaid, right, which could possibly be impacted by a proposal like this. Not guaranteed, but as you noted offline, Ed, oftentimes Medicaid and higher ed are amongst the first two areas to kind of get impacted whenever we got to pull money from other programs. So this certainly sounds like a classic Colorado funding battle, funding for cars and highways versus funding for multimodal transit like buses and rail. Talk to us a little bit about how significant is the funding of roads issue, and then what are the chances this makes the ballot in 2026?
Well, let me go back to the significance. Let me go back to the recent Foundation study. And the numbers that the ballot supporters are going to throw at you are things like, we are now ranked 47th in the country for rural pavement conditions, 45th for urban pavement conditions, 40th for road fatalities, 36th for congestion. They say that shows how important it is to get money to roads right now. Ironically, this is happening even as a group of environmental groups just last month went before a legislative committee and said, you're not putting enough money toward transit. And the reason they are so worried about this is that transportation is the #1 sector for producing emissions in the state of Colorado. And they say in order to reduce those emissions, we have to get people out of single-use classical combustion engine vehicles and into other ways of getting to work and getting around as well. So that's kind of the numbers that are going to talk about why it's so important from the supporter standpoint. As far as getting on the ballot, it's got a pretty clear road, no pun intended, right now. They did get title for 3 separate ballot initiatives last week, and they really the supporters have to go back now and decide what they want. Like one of the ballot initiatives, for example, puts money toward the Colorado State Patrol as well as toward road maintenance. Another one caps this at a 10-year funding. So it's really on its way toward the ballot now. It's just what version is going there.
Yeah, and I think it can't be understated, the importance of good roads for our economy in general. So I think there's certainly a strong argument that, increased funding for roads, bridges, and things of that sort are absolutely essential to keeping Colorado competitive, a place where businesses want to be for bringing their businesses to our state. From a business perspective, the Colorado Contractors Association has argued better roads are critical for commerce, but there's also a case to be made with respect to multimodal transportation for employees. Ed, we got to wrap this session. I want to give you just the last word in 10 seconds.
I think yes. I mean, transportation is critical for moving goods and services. So is transit in some ways, but there are some things you can't do on transit. That's the big argument behind this.
We got to leave it there. This is a complex issue as always. Most everyone agrees Colorado's roads need funding. The debate over how to do it and what gets left behind is far from over. As business keeps buzzing in Colorado, our goal is for you to stay informed, be engaged, and get ahead of the game. So stay tuned for more business news and discussion on the Business Buzz each week. For the 9 News Business Buzz, for Ed Sealover, I'm Ryan Frazier. Until next time.